Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome Dave Lubin back to the channel. We are taking a look at the year 1973. It's the Best Year in Music series, our top 10 albums. We want to hear from you in the chat. What are your favorite albums from 1973? Let's do it.
Grant is changing the world one track at a time on Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and I want to welcome Dave Lubin back to the show. We have an ongoing series, ladies and gentlemen, where we are going through every year and picking our top 10 favorite albums. Tonight, we are in 1973. And we're kind of just going backwards, but it's all good. It's fun. And Dave, how are you? Nice to see you. I want to welcome you to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Grant. Always good to look back at this music that's, getting older and older to the point that we were just young kids.
Yep. 1973 was a good year, even though when I was going through my list, I was going, my God, I could pick this. I could pick this. Now, and always, if you're keeping track of these shows here in the warehouse, you know that our list could fluctuate from one day to another. This really is just an excuse for Dave and I to get together and talk some music. So anyway, Mr. Lubin, we're going to go 3, 3, and 4. I'm going to send it over to you. What is your first 3 picks?
All right, so I'm going to start with my number 10. And, I've been on this show before. I think this is my favorite band, and that's the Electric Light Orchestra. And this is almost that Bridge album, and that's On the Third Day. It's pretty good, but they're not quite there yet. But they had 2 fantastic songs that are still played like all the time on rock radio, Mama Bell and Showdown. Showdown was a hit. It was a minor hit. It was a hit on rock radio at the time. I don't know if they had rock radio then, but anyway, they must have.
They did.
Peaked at number 53, and the album itself peaked at 52 on U.S. charts and 40 in Canada. So ELO was kind of building a little bit more of a following in Canada, just a bit. Probably the British influence. A lot of times those British bands, because Canada's a Commonwealth of Great Britain. And sometimes those types of things like Supertramp would hit Canada first. But anyway, they were on their way. It's a pretty good album, but it's one of those albums where the leap from On the Third Day to El Dorado was like massive, because El Dorado was like a perfect album, whereas this is just a good album. Jeff Lynne's a heck of a musician, and quite like it, but not my favorite. So that's my number 10. My number 9, I'm going to go with the soundtrack. And it's a compilation soundtrack. And that's the soundtrack to American Graffiti. Now, what's cool about American Graffiti is that I'd watch this movie, and I'd always really liked the music. And the music, it's one of those, it's not a musical per se, but that soundtrack from the 60s and late 50s really drives the movie. I mean, it's so integral to it, because the whole concept of the movie is it's these, 4 teenagers. It's their last night together in the town. 2 of them are supposed to go off for college, that being Ron Howard and Richard Dreyfuss. And music is constantly being played in the background, and you're constantly hearing the sound of Wolfman Jack as he's spinning these different records, or they're at the prom and they're listening. But there's so many great songs that I really became introduced to that are kind of, well before our time. So you think about the opening number, Rock Around the Clock. Well, that Rock Around the Clock for the first 2 years was the opening to Happy Days. Makes sense, because a lot of people think American Graffiti, Happy Days was a spin-off of American Graffiti. No, but it was an influence. There's a difference. It was not an actual spin-off. I mean, the characters are totally different, but there's definitely an influence there. Obviously, Ron Howard was the star.
Wasn't when Cindy Williams was in there too? That's why people think that Happy Days is a spinoff, because there's similar characters. That's why. But
the actual story is Happy Days was shown as a little segment on the show Love American Style. It was called Love in the Happy Day, and it had Ron Howard, Anson Williams, and Marion Ross. It was supposed to be a pilot. It was not picked up. Then that movie American Graffiti became a big hit, and then Gary Marshall said, "Hey, there might be something there." So he took back some of those. He took back some of the cast. He changed the father. The father was Harold Gould. Anyway, he switched to Tom Bosley because Harold Gould was busy with something else at the time. And then, of course, Happy Days became what it did. But going back to the soundtrack, I mean, I'll just bring up a couple of songs that I really remember in the in the movie very well. Like, there's some great songs in there, like 16 Candles by the Crest. And of course, that was used in all these songs were used in other movies at one time. Why Do Fools Fall in Love? That's a good scene, because that's the scene where Richard Dreyfuss sees Suzanne Summers in the white T-bird.
In the Thunderbird, yeah.
Right. And that's the song that was playing at the time. And just a couple of others. Surfing Safari, so that was kind of a fun scene. That was Mackenzie Phillips. She's a kid at this point. She's in the car with Paul LeMat. And he doesn't like the Beach Boys, and she goes, "Don't you like the Beach Boys?" And he admit, anyway. Of course, I'm a big Beach Boys fan. They've come up on my lists a few times. It's a great scene. Actually, you brought up Ron Howard and Cindy Williams. They're dancing at the prom to "Smoke Gets in Your Eyes." He's going off to college. They don't know if they're going to survive as high school sweethearts, and it's kind of a sad part of the movie. You know, that whole uncertainty of when you're a teenager, heading into adulthood. The original version of Ain't That a Shame. I mean, the first version of Ain't That a Shame I knew, of course, was Cheap Trick, but it's actually a Fats Domino song. You're 16, which I'm actually going to talk about again today in another album. That's actually by Johnny Burnett. The Platters have a lot of good hits. The Smoke Get in Your Eyes was in this. And then it finishes with another great Beach Boys song. Finishes perfectly. It shows you what happens with the four characters, and they're playing all summer long in the background. So anyway, I really do enjoy it. It just introduced me to all kinds of music. And what's interesting also about this album is that I read that basically they play the order that the songs appear on the album is the order that the songs appear in the movie. Okay, so speaking of You're 16, that brings me to my number 8 choice, and that's Ringo by Ringo Starr.
Oh.
Now, Ringo, I think he was probably the most popular Beatle. I think he was the one that had like the least enemies. All 4 Beatles participated in this album. They all wrote songs with him. So John Lennon wrote a song, The Greatest. Paul and Linda McCartney wrote 6 O'Clock. And of course, the big, huge hit on the album, which I said was my favorite non-Beatles song, or ex-Beatles song, Photograph, was written by George Harrison and Ringo Starr. I think that song's fantastic. I think it's
fantastic.
It's got everything in it. And then, of course, he does a version of You're 16, which I mentioned in American Graffiti. That was a big hit from him. So he had two number 1 singles in that album, Photograph and You're 16. And another song I really like on this album is Devil Woman. Now, it's not to be confused with Devil Woman by Cliff Richard, which is also a really good song from the 70s. And just giving a list of a few other musicians, I think Ringo was a popular guy. He had Nicky Hopkins appear on this album, Billy Preston, and Harry Nilsson did some background vocals with him. So that's my number 8.
It's a great, you have to admit, it's a great Beatle-related record.
I think it was the first mega hit album of all 4 of them that they had. I think I'd have to kind of look back. He actually had a big mega hit album before Paul did, which is and before
Bigger
John.
Than Band on the Run?
Okay, so it's that year, but I think it was released before that one.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right.
We're going to get there to that one.
All right, well, I'm going to start off with one that you already mentioned. Now, I've got mine numbered, but they're all worthy. I don't think that I don't know if I really have a favorite album of this year. I love all these records. So I'm going to start off as well with ELO on the Third Day. I think this is probably the record where they really started to take off. Now, I know there's no Roy Wood here, but as far as the fusing, of Beatles-inspired pop with classical strings, symphonic rock, I think that this is a good example. I think Jeff is finally honing his skills, and you've got the Funky Showdown. Now, come on, that's fully realized DLO. That could be, I think Showdown could have been on New World Record. It could have been, on any of those later records, I think Jeff figured out the formula. Ma Belle, come on. Jeez. Wonderful track. And in November 73, it's introspective, it's kind of eclectic. I think everything works here. I just think that once he hit Showdown, I think everything started to come together. So this was a hit in the UK, hit in the US. I mean, this is where they started out. That they're starting to get some momentum. So anyway, not the greatest ELO album, but pretty darn good. Next record I'm going to look at, I'm going to go Paul McCartney and Wings Band on the Run. Now, just because it's a 10 doesn't mean it is a 10. I like all these records. This is the record that Paul decided. He rang up EMI and said, well, I'd like to record an album somewhere else. Not always, recording in the UK. So they went to Nigeria and had muggings, had desertions. They had a lot of issues with the record. The studio wasn't built. They took Jeff Emmerich over there with them to engineer. Had a lot of problems. But we had band members leaving, so it was just Denny, Paul, and Linda. Paul's doing the drumming. Paul's playing bass. They're a trio at this point, but man, come on. The most Beatle-like album yet from anybody. And this is what everybody was wanting. We had Red Rose Speedway before it. It wasn't quite what people wanted, even though I liked that record. But this came out in December of 73, and it's very Beatle-esque. I'll leave it at that. Everybody should know that. Won a Grammy, topped the charts. I think it's a post-Beatles masterpiece if you want Beatle-esque tunage. Also, the U.S. version had Helen Wheels added, which I think fits right in the record. I like that they added that. And that was in the U.S. version. I think it's a great Wings album. Come on, everybody knows this record. If not, you should. Number 8, I'm going to go with Montrose, the debut album from Montrose. This is Proto Metal Fury with Sammy Hagar. This is our first album with Sammy Hagar, and Sammy sounds great. You got monster riffs, rock candy, Space Station number 5, bluesy swagger, hard rock. There's no filler on this album. This is almost like the prototype for Van Halen, produced by Ted Templeman. And after you hear this record, no wonder they had Ted produce Van Halen. He's perfect for it. Catchy hooks, great guitar playing from Ronnie Montrose. It's energetic blueprint for heavy rock. It's great. What more can you want? It's a classic album. It never sold that much back in the day. But if you like Sammy Hagar, this is definitely a must for you. So there you go. Electric Light Orchestra, Wings, and Montrose. Dave, back to you.
Okay, so now we're into somebody I haven't brought up too much on these shows, but probably should be brought up some more, and that's Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder. His 16th album, believe it or not. So because he started doing albums when he was like a youngster. This is a really good album. It's an excellent rhythm and blues album, but Stevie Wonder had his own sort of pop version of rhythm and blues. He had, of course, the hit on it, Don't You Worry About a Thing, which is a great song. But for me, this album is all about one specific song, and that's Living in the City. You don't hear that enough. I was actually kind of surprised to see that this song actually had reached the top 10 on the chart. So I was kind of surprised to see that. I'm imagining that the hit version, I think I have heard it. There's a shortened version. The longer song it's him doing a rhythm and blues song. It's a social commentary song explaining, what the plight of African Americans was at the time in the 70s in New York City. I was a little kid at the time when this would have happened, but I kind of remember what he's referring to just from observation. And his whole storytelling in this song is quite incredible. It starts off as like as a Stevie Wonder song. It is like it's got that preachiness element because he's telling a story, he's telling a saga. But then when he goes into no music and then just vocals, it's just like vocals, sound effects, cops yelling, and then when he goes into that final musical part, it's much harsher sounding, and it's an incredible song. It's definitely my favorite song Stevie Wonder ever had, and it's just enough for me to say this is. And the other, I like the rest of the album too, but that's the one that always stands out for me. Just to give you an idea, it's Living in the City. Rolling Stone ranked it the 104th best song of all time.
Wow.
And they said, and Rolling Stone also said this album was number 34 on the greatest albums of all time. So obviously they have a lot of respect for it, and I can see why. So number 6, and we talked about ELO kind of finding their way. Billy Joel found his way. He had the album Piano Man. The first album he had was called Cold Spring Harbor. It didn't really do anything. Actually, in later years, it was re-released. It actually does have a couple of good songs on it, but he didn't have the record company backing, and he wasn't quite there yet. Here, this is a heck of an album, and what's interesting is this album did pretty well, and then it took him a few other albums until he hit his stride. So basically, what it went was Piano Man did good. Then the next two, which I think actually are pretty darn good albums, Street Life Serenader and I think Turnstiles is an excellent album. I think that or between that and 52nd Street, I don't know which is his best one. But anyway, Turnstiles did not do much. But then The Stranger was like, just took off like a rocket. I don't know if anybody watched the HBO special. It talks about how that happened. Billy Joel was getting noticed, he was getting radio play, but they were waiting for him to have that big hit, and he went from he just shot like a rocket on it. But this one did pretty well for itself. He had his first top 40 hit. Believe it or not, only peaked at number 27 because it's such a standard today. And you hear it all the time, and it's probably one of his most played songs, although almost an oxymoron because so many Billy Joel songs are played on the radio now. The other two songs that made the top 100 are not two of the better-known songs. It's Travel and Prayer and Worst Comes to Worst, so those are not two particularly well-known Billy Joel songs. The songs that I still remember this album for, other than Piano Man, are Captain Jack and The Ballad of Billy the Kid. And I think those are fantastic songs. I remember they were my favorites at the time, and sure enough, those are probably the top 3 most known songs on the album. So that's number 6. Number 5, well, I got a real classic. I mean, I can't be on the Grants Rock Warehouse and not include this. As a matter of fact, I before the show, I don't know if it was recorded, I said Grant and I probably only have two albums the same. I think we have more than that.
We're going to have more.
Okay, we're going to have more. This is the 8th studio album by Pink Floyd. Quite frankly, it's the only Pink Floyd album I ever liked. Oh. Like from start to finish. I like something here or there. I have Animals. I never really cared much for that. It was a concept album, and it basically, the idea is that it focused on the pressures faced by the band during their lifestyle and dealt with mental health problems of the band. This album went 16 times platinum. It remained in Billboard's top 200 albums chart for 736 non-consecutive weeks from March 17th, 1973, all the way to July 16th, 1988. That's crazy. It sold 45 million copies worldwide. It's filled with rock standards like Money and Us and Them. Idea of the album, as I said, it's a concept album. It's supposed to explore themes such as conflict, greed, time, death, mental illness. The approximation is that 1 of every 14 people in the United States, this is in 2007, under the age of 50, own this album. So I was one of them. Here it is.
And maybe multiple copies.
So that's number 5.
All right, cool. Excellent. Yeah, we're going to have some crossover. But that's all good. Now I can't find my notes. All right, Grant. All right, my next record. Okay. You may have this on your list. I don't know. My number 7. I'm going to go with The Who Quadrophenia. This is another ambitious rock opera. Pete Townsend did Tommy. Pete Townsend's into a lot of rock operas. So we're in 1973. This rock opera follows a mod teenager named Jimmy through a schizophrenic identity crisis in the 60s. A lot of drug taken. If you ever saw the 1979 film which I highly recommend. It's got Sting in it. Phenomenal film. Great film. I could watch that film over and over. It kind of, if you once you see the film and you can hear the soundtrack, it kind of puts it more together. But you've got thunderous, great tracks like The Punk and the Godfather. Love Reign Over Me. Great thunderous bass from Entwistle. Roger Daltrey's vocals, absolutely phenomenal. They tried to do some synthesizer experiments and they had some infighting, but they they kind of got over that hurdle. I wasn't even sure there would be a record, but they were able to get it together. But man, this is where I think Roger Daltrey really comes into his own. Now, you may argue and say, well, what about Who's Next? Well, there too, but man, Daltrey's vocals on Quadrophenia, absolutely wonderful. Entwistle does all the brass arrangements, and I do believe that he did some of the mixing. I could be wrong. Does it work better than Tommy? Well, maybe not as much, but when you look at the film, I think it does. Anyway, I think it's a pinnacle of 1970s concept rock. It's to me, this was the last really great Who album. So your mileage may differ. All right. Number 6, Dave already mentioned this, but I'm going to go with Stevie Wonder Intervisions, an absolute masterpiece. Too High. You've got a lot of tracks about urban decay, like Living for the City. Higher Ground. Red Hot Chili Peppers did that track. It's just the use of synthesizers. Clavinet is making a really predominant fixture on this record. One-man band arranged alignments. You've got Stevie playing drums. It was during this whole era, Stevie Wonder could not do wrong. It's a masterpiece. This might be possibly his finest record. This also got a Grammy for Record of the Year. Don't You Worry About a Thing had a little bit of a Latin feel. It's a visionary statement for Black power empowerment. It's innovative. It's controversial. It is groundbreaking. It's a wonderful record. What can I say? There's no tracks on this record I would skip. It deserves to be on this list. It's a masterpiece. Number 5, I'm going to go with, this is a bit of a compilation. I guess it could be considered a comp because this band, you look at them in the United States and their catalog's a little bit kind of bizarre. This quote unquote would be the debut album by this band in the United States, but it happens to also be a compilation. I'm going to go with Sweet. And I believe that came out was that on Bell back in the day? I think that's the label it was on. But this is a 73 compilation that rounds up the band's 72 to 73 UK singles. So there is no filler here. It's all killer. You've got bubblegum pop with Little Willie. You've got glam rock with Blockbuster. You've got all the tracks here are Chin and Chapman songs. So this isn't where, Sweet's starting to take over their career. All Chin and Chapman, but you get a good sampling of all those singles, and all those Sweet singles were absolutely wonderful. Catchy choruses, fuzzy guitars. Brian Conley's singing is absolutely phenomenal. The harmonies, as we know, these were contemporaries with Queen. Who started that whole production with the vocals? Is it Sweet? Is it Queen? I don't know. I think it's a great record. It sold well at the time. A lot of their records were kind of bastardized. Like we probably talked about, what was the one record? Desolation Boulevard. You look at the U.S. album of this, and it's a comp. It takes all the best tracks from Sweet Fanny Adams, the UK album, and Desolation Boulevard, and bastardizes it and put it together. But you have to admit, here in the USA, I think we've done some good work because this Sweet album, this US comp is perfect. There's nothing you want to skip. And you know what? The people in the United States probably didn't even know this was a compilation when it came out. So highly recommend it. That's my number 5. All right, Dave, on to you. You're number 4.
Yeah, I didn't know that until you told me that on the show when we talked about that album, and it was on both our lists. I remember.
Yeah,
that.
Same album cover.
Yeah,
but totally different records. But I have to give the United States, the record companies, they took all the best from Desolation Boulevard. They took all the best from Sweet Fanny Adams. They took singles, they added it to it. And I would say that the US version of Desolation Boulevard is a flawless record. But, you might want to go to the UK albums to get the real UK albums. But, a lot of this stuff is good enough here in the United States. So, anyway, a sweet tangent.
All right, so I'm going to talk about my top four. Now, what's interesting for me is for this particular list, my top four is definitely my top four, and my top two is definitely my top two. It actually wasn't hard at all for me to identify my top two albums. My number four is one you've already mentioned, another ex-Beatle, of course, and that's Band on the Run. This was like sort of the breakout album for Paul McCartney on his own. There were 3 million copies sold in total. It peaked at number one in the US and Canada. There's so many good songs in this album. The song Jet hit number 3 on the charts, by the way. My personal favorite song on this album I think it's the last song on the album, is 1985. I love that song. It's a fantastic song. It's everything about it is excellent.
Yep.
And this was just one of those albums that it just propelled into this like string of fantastic albums. So ELO, when they did El Dorado, all of a sudden it was like they could do no wrong. It was El Dorado, Face the Music, A New World Record, and then for me everything was great until I even like the Time album. But here, this one's the next one was Venus and Mars, which is my favorite Wings album. But this one's damn good. I mean, it's pretty close. At the Speed of Sound was a heck of an album. London Town was To the Egg was a great album. So every single one of these is like a 5-star album, or maybe 4.5. So that's what I go with for my number 4. Now my number 3, I talked about how that Band on the Run brought Paul McCartney to a new level as a solo artist. This was what started April Wine. And that's Electric Jewels. And by the way, if anybody didn't hear, Grant did a listening party, and I was very happy he played Electric Jewels, because the Electric Jewels song is my favorite song on this particular album. So great choice that night if you're going to pick one song from this album. It was just so much better than the first two albums. And basically it had Gary Moffat. It had Jim Clench. I wish they had kept Jim Clench. And then, of course, it had Miles Goodwin. And, what's wrong? Jerry Mercer, of course. What's wrong with me? So, as far as what song is played the most, and I go by Canadian radio, Weeping Widow is played more frequently on this album, more than anything else on Canadian classic radio. That's the one that's played the most. But however, there was another hit song in Canada at the time, Lady Run, Lady Hide. That's a heck of a nice song. Miles Goodwin's vocals are absolutely perfect on this. What's interesting about this one is that the band was going in a sort of direction where Jim Clench and Miles Goodwin were splitting the vocals, and I quite enjoy the Jim Clench vocals. And then he only did 2 or 3 on the next one, and then of course he left the band. Cat's Claw is another fantastic one. Another fantastic song on this album, The Band Has Just Begun. It's another one of those songs that, gets everyone riled up during the show. When April Wine reunited in the 90s, they would put that song in and out of the set list. And it's a great album. There's a fella named Bob Bercereau. He had a book in 2007, the top 100 Canadian albums. This was the April Wine representation.
Wow.
Don't have a problem with that. I think for me, you can go with anything from Electric Jewels all the way to Power Play, and you've got a fantastic April Wine album. When we did the ranking show, I had a really hard time ranking those because they're just like so close together. So that's my number 3. My number 2, one of the greatest debut albums of all time. There's, Foreigner had a fantastic debut album. The Cars, of course, had a fantastic debut album. Toto, another one. But Leonard Skinner, what a start. First of all, just the fact that on their very first album, they had their anthem, Freebird, to end the album. But this whole album is absolutely killer. It starts off with I Ain't the One, which was often played in their concerts. It's played on the One More for the Road album, which I said was one of my favorites of that year. Tuesday's Gone is another. It's still played frequently. I hear that all the time on classic rock radio. I remember at the time when I bought this album, even I bought it a few years after it was released. Probably I bought this in like 79 or 80. So it was, that's when I had discovered Leonard Skinner. And I remember at the time thinking how good Give Me Three Steps and Simple Man were. And I find now those are, at the time, I didn't find those were necessarily one of the more popular songs, but because all these compilation albums came out over the years, people kind of discovered those songs, and now they're very popular. Here's a really good deep track. It's the song before Freebird. It's called Poison Whiskey. That's another fantastic song. So, hey, this is a fantastic album. These guys came out of the gun like a bullet, and put out just a fantastic album. As a matter of fact, I think they had trouble matching that as the albums went along, because even when I watched a special about them, Ronnie Van Zant recognized that, yeah, we killed it on that one. Second Helping was a great album, and then they had a little trouble until they released Street Survivors, and then unfortunately they weren't able to release more albums in that classic lineup. So that's my number 2. Now my number 1, I feel like I haven't given this artist enough talk on these shows, but I'm giving him number 1 for the year. I think the greatest double album of all time, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Every single damn song on this album is fantastic. I for me personally, I think if I was going to see Elton John, I'd be perfectly happy for him to just play this. Mm-hmm. It starts off with Funeral for a Friend. He's got Candle in the Wind. Actually, I'm going to make one caveat. Play this album, leave out Benny and the Jets. Don't like that song.
Is it overplayed too much?
Exactly. I liked it at the time, but it's one of those songs. When he plays that at a concert, it just goes on and on and on. And he goes, Benny and the Jets. He just does it over and over and over again. So come on, for the time you keep repeating Benny and the Jets, you could throw another song in there, Elton. But there's all these great deep tracks on this song, like all the Young Girls Love Alice, Sweet Painted Lady, Harmony, Roy Rogers. I can go on and on and on. This song has no title. That was a fun one. Grace Seal, which follows it, and people will probably I've seen that movie too. Is another one I really like. I think it was the best double album ever. It's loaded with hits. It's loaded with deep tracks. With Elton John, sometimes it's hard to know the difference between a hit and a deep track because his songs are, such classics. This album sold 20 million copies worldwide. It's considered the 112th best album ever by Rolling Stone, so Inner Visions is ranked higher. And there were 3 top 40 hits. You had Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. Benny and the Jets did hit number 1. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, the title song, hit number 2. And Candle in the Wind didn't chart at the time, but it's certainly become one of the best known songs. It got re-released in a live version. And then, of course, he did the tribute to Princess Diana, where he changed the lyrics in her honor. And that, I think, was a number 1 song at the time, the changed version. And, so I don't think too many people, if you like Elton John, got to like that album.
All right. Excellent, Dave. Let's keep moving. All right. I'm on to my number 4. Okay. This came out in July of 73. This is a debut album. I don't think anybody heard anything quite like this. Now, this band wasn't the critics' darling. Rolling Stone never really cared for this band so much. I think that their legend continued. They probably still are one of the biggest bands in the UK. I'm going to go with Queen's debut album, Queen. This album had hard rock, progressive elements, glam. The songs Keep Yourself Alive and The Epic Liar. You've got multi-track Brian May guitar sounds. You've never heard guitar like this before. Freddie Mercury's operatic vocals. I mean, it's bombastic. It's got lyrics that touch on fantasy, religion, personal struggles. It's this record really sounds cohesive, considering that they've recorded this like on a shoestring budget at Trident Studios over a course of, I don't know how many months they were working on it, but they sound like Queen right out of the gate. 100% great. But now, like I said, critics at the time kind of went, but now they kind of like it. This is a blueprint for stadium rock, if you ask me. That would be my number 4. My number 3, we're going to go with another Paul McCartney album. Now, this one's a little bit of a dark horse album, but I still like it. I like the box set that was released, those Paul McCartney box sets, that it has the entire album, because this was a double album originally and was pared down to a single LP. But it's kind of eclectic. It shows Paul McCartney's melodic genius, I think, but it's got ballads, it's got rockers, it's got like snippets. It kind of echoes loosely Abbey Road to me. It's got the chart single My Love, which was lush, orchestral favorite that people have. Big Barn Bed opens up the record, and it's just like a little ditty. You know, it's just like Paul's just doing whatever he wants. So this came out in April 73, and I think that the critics as well, I think, were kind of hard on it, but I think it's aged pretty well. I think Ram might be a better record. But even though, despite the mixed reviews, it did top the charts, people were still longing for the Beatles. People wanted more Beatle product now. I think it's fine. It's kind of a quirky. It's not like Band on the Run. This isn't a Beatle record so much. But I had to mention Red Rose Speedway because it's kind of grown on me. Even though when I first heard it when I was a kid, I wasn't all that into it. I kind of like it now. All right, number 2. I'm going to go Todd Rundgren, A Wizard of True Star. I can't believe Dave didn't mention this. I can't believe it. Ambitious is what I would call this record. This is a 56-minute album on one slab of vinyl. Psychedelic, weird. You've got psychedelic, you've got soul, you've got prog experiments, you've got pop gems. On paper, this record shouldn't work. But for some reason, it works. International feel. You've got the epic closer, Just One Victory. My God, it's a great record. And it goes all over the place. A lot of chaotic segues, tape speed manipulations. You got a nod to Gilbert and Sullivan. I mean, come on. Bit of nostalgia for the 60s and the 70s. It's one of Rundgren's finest works. Is it better than Something Anything? Well, maybe for some. I think it's a true masterpiece, though, and I think it's aged very well over time. One thing, it's a fun listen. You cannot deny it that. All right, my number 1. I would have to say, I'm going to be like Dave. I'm going to go with Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. Whether you like Animals better or you like Wish You Were Here better, you have to admit this record does stand above all of them. It's perfect production, perfect sequencing. You know, for all the overdubs that they did on here, it's amazing it sounds as good as it does because this absolutely is a breathtaking sounding record. Alan Parsons, you've got to give him credit. It's amazing. This was recorded at Abbey Road. Absolutely stunning. The track's time, you know, you've got that whole beginning part with all the clocks going off. Absolutely crazy. Money has the cash register thing, but they have all these different sound bites, but they're all wonderfully recorded. And to hear a really good copy of this, it just brings you into the record. It's just absolutely phenomenal. This came out in March of 73. They played a lot of this stuff on the road. So by the time they got to the studio, they were ready. A lot of tape loops, spoken word intros. It's one of the greatest albums ever. How could you not list this for 1973? And as Dave was saying, this spent like over 900 weeks on the Billboard charts, 45 million copies sold. It's wonderful. I can still listen to it. I don't pull it out every day, but I could still listen to it, and it's a phenomenal record. So that's my number 1. Do you have the poster in there?
No, I don't have a poster, but this really is an old version. I mean, this is if you look, I think this would be.
Is that on Harvest? Is that a Harvest?
No,
That's a Harvest. Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is Harvest. Okay, it says 1973, the Gramophone Company recorded in England. Yeah, I think this. Yeah, you're right. It's Harvest. There's the lyrics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to probably be the greatest album in 1973.
Yeah, well, it certainly was the best selling. I mean, it was my personal favorite. It wasn't my favorite per se, but it's an outstanding album, obviously. So.
Well, I like The Wall as well. I mean, I was a fan. I came into this record later. I was aware of it, but I was a big Syd Barrett fan, and I thought Piper, Syd Barrett solo, that's all I needed. Though I like Salsa Full of Secrets okay, but there was something magical about Dark Side, because when I finally did sit down to listen to it, I totally got it, you know?
I remember actually, and it was like after it was released, I was sent to summer camp as a teenager. I was sent to summer camp quite frequently, and I remember this was an album we used to play quite frequently in our bunk. And we would play that one over and over and over again. And that by the time I started, I mean, the album was released much before, but I think I was around like 15 or 16 years old at the time when that happened. So
yeah, see, I didn't start listening to it. See, I was listening to a lot of like Syd Barrett and Piper around, you know, in college. So I was always one of those people. If it's no Syd Barrett, I'm not interested. But I grew out of that, you know.
You know what I remember about that year? I mean, where and this album came up. I remember we were waiting forever and ever for the new Cars album to come out that summer. And I remember, like, you know, when camp was over, the bus took us to like the mall, and my brother picked me up, and he turns on the radio, and sure enough, the Misfit Kid from Panorama was being playing. And right away, as soon as I heard it, I said, "Oh my God, that's because I knew
that's the Cars."
Yeah, I know. I knew it was the Cars, and I knew that, you know, I knew that song was not from Candy-O or the debut album, because I knew those songs backwards and forwards. And said, "Oh my God, finally it's out!" It was like, yes, Panorama came out, and I think that album's great. Anyway, so that's 73. Wow.
Yeah, there you go. We want to know what you think down below in the chat. Let us know what your top 10 albums in 1973 is. I bet Dark Side will be in that ranking.
For a lot,
but we had a lot of crossover, Dave.
I would think that debut album by Skinner would be in some people's list for sure.
Yeah, I can honestly say I don't think I've ever heard that whole album.
No,
I might have to check it out.
Not a bad song on the album. Every single song is this.
And that was produced.
It's very Roddy Van Zandt.
And that was produced by Al Cooper, correct? I do believe. Yeah.
Yeah, Al Cooper. Yeah, this is. I mean, I got this, and I would have gotten this like around 1980 or something. But no, it's like got the sleeve, and of course got the cigarette package on the back. A lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, kids. Well, we can wrap this dog up, Dave.
All right.
Thank Mr. Lubin for coming on and talking some music. It's all about trying to turn you on to stuff here in the Warehouse. And like I said, we do want to hear from you in the chat. What are your favorite albums from 1973? We will be back for 1972. We're going backwards. But this is fun. Dave, I will be in contact. Thanks again, my friend. Good discussion. Great picks. Any picks that you have that I have, I'm happy with.
Well, thanks for having me on. And
what's going on with your channel? Any updates on your channel?
Right now, channel's on hold for now. So
okay. Well, hopefully we'll see you back. All right, everybody. Keep it clean. We'll have Dave back. We will talk to you later, Mr. Lubin, and everybody keep it clean, Wrap the Rascal. And all right, we'll see everybody.